Hey there, in this video I am going to go over 5 sample math test questions from the HiSET test. HiSET stands for High School Equivalency Test. You could see similar types of questions when you take the actual test. Let's look at question 1. It says Kyle purchased a padlock with a resettable combination that uses 3 digits from 0 through 9 that must be entered in the proper order. A digit may be repeated in the combination. Which expression shows the total number of possible combinations for the padlock? I'm going to highlight the final question. And we're looking for the expression that shows the total number of possible combinations. Well, it says here that when setting your combination, you can use 3 digits, and you can choose from 0 through 9. I'll get into that more in a second. And the digits must be entered in proper order. And it says here a digit may be repeated in the combination. So, when setting the combination, you can choose from these digits, 0 through 9. I'll write those out. Now again, we're choosing 3 digits from here. 1, 2, 3. So for digit 1, how many possible choices do I have? Well, I have 10, right? I could put a 0 here, a 1 here, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, a 6, a 7, an 8, or a 9. And that's 10 choices for digit 1. And don't make the mistake of thinking 9. 0 counts as a digit. Remember, if you count these up in total, there's 10 digits. Let's just redo that so to make sure you got it. There's 1 digit, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So let's say for the first digit, I pick a 2. Once I pick that 2, can I use it for the next digit, or do I need to cross it out? What do you think? Well, I can use it again. It says a digit may be repeated in the combination. So since I chose a 2 for the first digit, I don't cross it out because I could use it again. So keep that in mind. Now, how many choices do I have for my second digit? Well, I still have a total of 10 digits to choose from. So 10 choices for the second digit. And you could put the 2 here again if you want to. I'll pick something else. Let's say I chose 5. Now, I don't cross out this 5 because a digit may be repeated in the combination. I could use the 5 again. So, keep that in mind when you're doing this. Let's go to the last digit. How many choices do I have for the last digit? Well, I have 10 choices again. And how about if I choose a 0 for the last digit? So this is one possible combination that you could enter, 250. But the question is how many total possible combinations could I make using 3 digits from these 10 digits? So what I need to do is look at my choices right here. Right here. We have 10 choices for the first digit, 10 choices for the second digit, 10 choices for the third digit. What do you think I'm going to do with these 10s? Do you think I'm going to add them up or multiply them? With these types of problems, you're going to multiply these. So it's going to be 10 times 10 times 10. Now, if you're taking the test and you're not quite sure why, here's what I recommend you do. I mean, there is a reason for it. It's called the counting principle, but I don't want to get into that. Let's say we were to add them. 10 plus 10 plus 10. What would that be? That would be 30. In other words, that would mean that the total number of possible combinations is 30. That's not enough, because someone could easily guess the combination. They just have to choose from 30 different possibilities, and eventually they'd find the correct one. So they could easily guess the combination if there's only 30 possible choices. This is just not enough. That's why it just makes more sense, if you're thinking in terms of the real world, to multiply these. And that's what I'm going to do. 10 times 10 times 10 is 1,000. And that makes more sense. So if someone wanted to guess, he'd have to choose from 1,000 different possibilities before he guessed the correct lock. So it makes it more difficult for someone to guess your combination. So my expression is 10 times 10 times 10 right here. Well, what does that match up with? A, B, C, D, or E? Well, answer choice A says 3 to the power of 10. So that would mean to take the 3, the base, and write it out 10 times and multiply. I mean, it would be 3 times 3 times 3 times 3, 10 times. That doesn't match up with this expression. This says 10 times 10 times 10, so A's gone. Let's see, does this expression match up with B? Well, this says 10 to the power of 3. That means to take the base of 10 and write it 3 times. I'm going to take this 10 and write it 3 times, 1, 2, 3, and multiply. And that matches up with this expression here. 10 times 10 times 10. In other words, that equals or is the same as 10 to the power of 3. So my answer is B. And I move on. Now, before I go on to the next question, I want to go over a couple of things. I'm actually going to clear some of this out here. I'm just going to clear out the whole thing to clean it up. A couple of things. If I were taking the real HiSET test, I would have immediately eliminated C and E. Because if I add these up, 10 plus 9 plus 8, I would get 27. And in the real world, 27 possible combinations is just not enough. It would be too easy for someone to guess. And same thing with here. 10 plus 10 plus 10 is 30. So that's not enough possible combinations for a padlock. Again, someone could easily guess this too. So when you're doing these problems, don't lose your common sense. Think of it, especially with problems like this, in terms of the real world. And then I have a better chance of guessing A, B, or D. That's the first thing. This is the second thing I want to go over. What if it says on the HiSET test, a digit may not be repeated? So everything's the same, but it says a digit may not be repeated in the combination. Let me show you how that would change things, and you might already know, but it would look like this. So let me just write out my digits again real quick. So for the first digit, I would still have 10 possible choices, right? 10 choices. Let me just do the second and the third. So let's say for the first digit under this scenario, I picked the 2. Now, if it is to say a digit may not be repeated, then you can't use the 2 again, so you need to cross it out. And then for my second digit, how many possible choices would I have now? Well, now I'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, because I can no longer use the 2. So the second digit would have 9 choices impossible. Okay, let's say for the second one I chose a 4. Now, once I use the 4, I can't repeat it, so I'd have to cross this out. And then for the third digit, how many possible choices would I have now to choose from? Well, now it'd just be 8, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now for the third digit, I can choose any of the remaining numbers that are left up here. How about if we choose a 7? So one possible combination is 2, 4, 7. But you need to see this piece. So when the digits can't be repeated, I'd have 10 possible choices for the first digit, 9 for the second, and 8 for the third digit possible choices. And again, you wouldn't want to add these because it wouldn't make sense. You'd want to multiply these out. So it'd be 10 times 9 times 8. This would be my expression in this situation right here. And that would match up with D. Because this means 10 times 9 times 8. And so does this, 10 times 9 times 8. These are just written differently. This is just written with parentheses. So there you go. Keep that straight when you're taking the real HiSET test. Question 2. The unit of measurement used to describe the energy produced by an atomic particle accelerator is the electron volt, eV. Shown below are the amounts of energy produced by 2 versions of a particle accelerator. So the original model produces 2 times 10 to the 10th electron volts, and the new model produces 8 times 10 to the 11th electron volts. How many more electron volts are produced by the new model as compared to the original model? So this is the final question. And we need to understand what that is asking us to do. So with problems like this, what I do is I cross these complicated numbers out here. And I make up some numbers that are easier to work with so I get an understanding of what I need to do. So let's say the original model produced 3 electron volts. And let's say the new model produced 10 electron volts. Now, it says here, how many more electron volts are produced by the new model as compared to the original model? Well, with numbers like this, what do you think the answer would be? It would be 7, right? The new model produces 7 more electron volts than the original model if we were using these numbers. And the way to get that is I would go 10 minus 3. In other words, I'm taking the new model minus the original model. So with simpler numbers, now you see what you need to do. So keep that in mind. New model minus original model. So the new model has 8 times 10 to the 11th electron volts from right here. Minus the original model has 2 times 10 to the 10th electron volts. Now what a lot of students do at this point is they see the 8 and the 2 and they say 8 minus 2 is 6, so my answer must be D. This is a trap answer. You need to remember when you have expressions like this and you're adding and subtracting, the exponents need to be the same. And this exponent is 11 and this exponent is a 10. So what I'm going to do is change this 11 into a 10 to make it the same as this exponent. Now, you could turn this 10 into an 11 to make it the same as this, but I'm going to do it the first way I said it. So I'm going to drop this exponent down 1 unit. Right now it's an 11. I'm going to drop it down 1 unit to a 10. Now these exponents are the same. This is a 10 and this is a 10. But since I dropped this down 1 unit, I need to change this number to compensate for that. Let's focus in on this 8. Now remember, when you have a whole number, there's really a decimal there. It's just not showing. It always occurs at the end of the number. So I'm going to write it in right here. So here's what you need to think. The original exponent was 11, and I changed it to a 10. That's a change of 1 unit. So to compensate for that, you need to move this decimal 1 space either to the left or 1 space to the right. So here's the decision we need to make. Do I move it 1 space this way? Or do I move it 1 space this way? And again, the reason I'm moving it just 1 space is because this was a change of 1. Well, the original exponent was 11. And I moved it down. I made it smaller. So to compensate for that, I need to make this number bigger. Therefore, I need to move this decimal 1 unit to the right. And in this space here, I'm going to put a 0. So now this becomes 80. The decimal's no longer here. It's at the end over here because I moved it 1 unit to compensate to the right. So really, this now becomes 80 times 10 to the 10th. Little tricky, but really what I'm getting at here is this piece here is the same as 80 times 10 to the 10th. So 8 times 10 to the 11th is equivalent to 80 times 10 to the 10th. Now I'm going to bring this piece down right here. So bring your minus sign down. Bring this piece down, the 2 times 10 to the 10th. And now my exponents are the same here and here, so I can subtract without a problem. And here's how I think it through. If I have 80 10 to the 10ths and I subtract 2 10 to the 10ths, I'm left with 78 10 to the 10ths. Let me repeat that. Think in your mind, 80 10 to the 10ths, take away 2 10 to the 10ths, is a total of 78 10 to the 10ths after I subtract. Now another way to look at it is you just take the 80 minus the 2 right here, and 80 minus 2 is 78, and then you just bring down your common factor of 10 to the 10th. So this is my answer right here. But we got a problem, right? I don't see this exact answer here. It looks close to A, B, and C, but it's not exactly the same. But it's definitely not D or E. So we can eliminate D and E. They're gone. And if you need to guess at this point, you have a better chance of guessing. But let's look at this piece right now and get it into the correct form. Clear all this out. I should have just used my eraser here to go quicker. But we had 78 times 10 to the 10th. Now, by the way, this is really scientific notation because we're multiplying by 10. So, we eliminated D and E. Now, looking at this, there is another answer choice we can eliminate. Do you see it? Let me give you a hint. It's going to be B right here. Let me explain how I know B can't be the correct answer. B says the answer is 7.8 times 10 to the 10th. And you should see that there's no way these two are the same. This says I have 78 10 to the 10ths. This says I have 7.8 10 to the 10ths. I mean, since these pieces are identical to 10 to the 10ths, that implies that these two have to be identical as well for the whole things to be equal. So B's gone. Now at this point, if you need to guess, you even have a better chance. But based on what we just did in the previous part of this video, do you think it's going to be A or C? Well, let's look at A. I know it has a 7.8 in it. And C also has a 7.8 in it. That tells me that this needs to be changed to a 7.8. So let's do that. Really what I did here is I just took the decimal, which is right here at the end of the number. It's just not shown, and I moved it 1 unit to the left, right? Well, this number was originally 78. Now it's 7.8. I made it smaller. So that tells me that I need to compensate by making this exponent bigger. So basically, my answer has to have an exponent that's bigger than 10. Well, I can eliminate C, because C has an exponent that is less than 10. It's a 9 here, so C's gone. As you can see, A has an exponent of 11, which is bigger than 10. So A is my answer. And if you want to just write out this final piece, this would be times 10 to the 11th. Now really quickly, I would like to summarize a couple things. If you noticed in this video, I was moving decimals either to the left or the right. The reason I'm able to do this is because our numbers were multiplied by 10. If you notice right here, it says times 10, times 10. Here it says times 10, times 10. We're in a base 10 system, so when you multiply stuff by 10 and you want to manipulate it, you can move your decimal point. If you have stuff on the test that said something like 3 times 7 to the 5th, And this piece here was not multiplied by 10. It was multiplied by some other number right here. You cannot manipulate the decimals like that. Just keep that in mind. I don't think you'll have something like this, though. One other thing. If you were able to use a calculator that was a scientific calculator that's actually allowed on the GED math test, this problem would be easier because there's a scientific notation mode on there. But from my research on the HiSET test, you will only have access to a basic calculator like this. So you will have to do a problem like this by hand. Question 3. A solution of salt water is made by dissolving 2 grams of salt in 1 liter of water. Which of these would yield a solution with the same concentration? Do not let the grams of salt and the liters of water throw you off. I'm going to cross them out. What we're really doing is comparing two numbers, the 2 and the 1. That's called a ratio. And there's many ways to write a ratio. You can write it as 2 to 1. You can write it as 2 to 1 like this with a colon, or you can write it as 2 to 1 with the 2 on the top and the 1 on the bottom as a fraction. I prefer this way. So let's focus on the fractional piece. Well, what is 2 divided by 1? Well, that just equals 2. So this is my target answer right here. So in short, I'm comparing the 2 and the 1 and simplifying it. And again, when you compare two numbers, it's called a ratio, and you can write it in multiple ways. So we wrote it as 2 divided by 1. I didn't worry about any of the units, i.e. the grams of salt and liters of water. That's there to throw you off. And when I simplify this, I got a 2. Well, now I need to compare each one of the numbers in my answer choices. So let's just start with answer choice A. Again, let's just get rid of this grams of salt and liters of water. And I'm comparing 1/2 with the 2. And I'm going to write it as a fraction. So it would look like this. 1/2 on the top. And on the bottom there would be a 2. Well, this looks scary to me. Let's change the 1/2 to a decimal. Hopefully you know that 1/2 is the same as 0.50. I mean, if you have half a dollar, that's the same as 50 cents. So I rewrote the 1/2 as 0.50. Bring over this division bar and bring over your 2. And now let's divide this on the calculator, and if we get out a 2, A is my answer. Now for the HiSET test, you will have access to a basic calculator like this. So let's go 0.50 divided by 2. Hit equals, and you get out a 0.25. That does not match up with this. If this came out to be a 2 here, then A would be my answer, but it doesn't. I'll write it down. This came out to be 0.25, which does not match up with this. I will cross out A and move on. Now let's go to B. I can tell B is not going to be the answer. I can cross it out. Let me tell you why. Because it says 1/2 and 1/2 right here. Well, when you divide two numbers that are the same, it always comes out to 1. So I know this is a ratio of 1, but let me show you. We have 1/2 divided by 1/2. Whenever the number on the top is identical to the number on the bottom, the ratio is always 1. Or you could go for this one. I mean, if you don't believe me, you could go 0.50 divided by 0.50. Punch that in on the calculator, you will get out a 1. But if you see that right away, you can cross out B immediately, and 1 does not match up with 2, so B is gone. Let's look at C. We are now comparing 1 with 1/2. So I'll put the 1 on the top, divided by 1/2. We've already established that 1/2 is the same as 0.50 or 50 cents. So I'm going to put, instead of 1/2, I'll put 0.50. I will divide this on the calculator. If I can bring it up. There it is. Let's divide this. I hit clear. So 1 divided by 0.50. Hit enter. Yay, I get out a 2, right? That matches up with this, and C is my answer. And I'll write that down. So when I divided this, I got out a 2, which matched up with this. Therefore, C has to be the correct answer. Question number 4. The diagram below shows a coordinate grid. What are the coordinates of the point where the graph of y equals negative 4x plus 8 intersects the x-axis? First of all, let's look at this word coordinate. A coordinate tells you how to move in the coordinate grid. So for example, answer choice A is a coordinate. The first number here, the 2, tells you how many units to move in the x direction. And the second number here tells you how many units to move in the y direction. That's why we always write a coordinate as x, comma, y. So let me put that in for each one of these, x, y. Now, we're trying to figure out the coordinate of the point that intersects the x-axis. Intersects means to touch. So another way to think about this is we are looking for the coordinate of the point that touches the x-axis, and this is my x-axis. So I'm going to use the process of elimination here, and I will worry about this equation later, the y equals negative 4x plus 8. So let's go ahead and plot this point. If it touches the x-axis, then it could possibly be the correct answer. However, if I plot the point and it doesn't touch the x-axis, I will eliminate it as a possible correct answer. So let's plot this point here, 2, 0. This tells us to move 2 units in the x direction and 0 units in the y direction. So I'll start at the origin and move 2 units in the x direction and 0 units in the y direction. In other words, I won't move up or down. I'll plot my point. So this point right here touches the x-axis. Here's my x-axis, right? This whole line across here, and this point's touching it. It falls right on top of the x-axis. And remember, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for a point that touches or intersects the x-axis. Since this point does, I need to keep A as a possible answer choice. Let's go to B and plot this point, 8, 0. So I move 8 units in the x direction and 0 units in the y direction. Start at the origin. 8 units in the x direction is right here. And 0 units in the y direction indicates I don't move up or down. So 8 zeros here. And this point touches the x-axis, i.e. it intersects the x-axis, so I need to keep this as a possible answer choice because that's what we're looking for, points that intersect the x-axis. Now let's move to C and plot the point 0, -2. This means to move 0 units in the x direction and 2 units down in the y direction because of the negative sign. So we'll start here at the origin. I'll move 0 units in the x direction. In other words, I'm not going to move left or right, and I'll move 2 units down in the y direction. Well, this point does not intersect or touch the x-axis. The x-axis is here. This point touches or intersects the y-axis, which is up or down, right? Y is this way. And again, we're looking for points that touch the x-axis, and this doesn't. So I can eliminate C. Let's go to D and plot the point 0, -4. 0 units in the x direction, 4 units down in the y direction. So I'll start here at the origin. 0 units in the x direction, I won't move left or right, and I'll move down 4 units in the y direction, which is right here. Remember, y direction this way. Well, this does not touch the x-axis. This is gone. And E, let's plot this a little quicker. 0, 4, 0 units in the x direction, 4 units up in the y direction. So I'll start at the origin, move 0 units across and 4 units up. And this does not touch the x-axis either. It's right here. So this is gone as well. Now I'm down to a 50-50 chance of guessing. If you need to guess here, go ahead and guess. But let's narrow it down to the final answer. Now I'm going to need to use this equation right here. Right here. Y equals -4x plus 8. I'm going to recopy this equation. So I just recopied this here. Now, I'm going to look at answer choice A here. It says x is 2 and y is 0. So in this equation, I'm going to plug in 2 for x here and 0 for y here. And after I simplify it, if I get a true statement, then A is my correct answer. So let's do that. Replace the y with 0 from right here. It says y is 0. Bring down your equal sign. Remember, there's a time sign here it's not showing. This means -4 times x. So bring down your -4. Bring down your time sign. And replace the x here with 2. Because it says x is 2. So x, replace it with 2. Bring down your plus sign. Bring down your 8. Now, when I evaluate this side, the right-hand side, -4 times 2 plus 8, if I get out 0, it means I get a true statement, and A will be my answer. So let's continue. Bring down your 0. And remember the order of operations. It tells us to do multiplication before addition. So we'll do this multiplication piece first. What's 4 times 2? That's 8. Bring down your negative sign. Bring down your plus sign, bring down your 8, and let's finish simplifying this. Well, we can probably see it here. What's -8 plus 8? That's 0. So this comes out to be a true statement. I'll finish it up. Bring down your 0, -8 plus 8 is 0, and 0 equals 0. So since this is a true statement, A has to be my correct answer. Now a couple things before I move on. If you were to use answer choice B and plugged in 8 for x and 0 for y into this equation, you would have got out a false statement at the end. Now another thing, we found our answer here without actually having to graph this equation because we used our answer choices to help us. That's a test-taking strategy. if you were to graph this, it would look like this. I'm going to erase this. Or not erase this, but clear out all my writing. Remember, the answer is A. The graph of this would look as follows, and don't be concerned so much how I got it, but it would look like this, and you might see why it looks like this, and you might not. That's okay. So if you were to graph this, it would look like this, and you would notice that it would be a straight line, and the line would intersect the x-axis right here at 2, 0. That's really what this question is asking. It's asking if you were to graph this line, where does the point intersect the x-axis? Or where does the line cross the x-axis? And it crosses right here because the x-axis is here at 2, 0. So I showed you a test-taking strategy to get around graphing this and using your answer choices to help you. Now, if you're good at graphing, you could have simply graphed this equation on a separate sheet of paper and just noticed that it crossed here at 2, 0. So that's another way to go about this problem. And there's even another way you could have done this. You could have just plugged in a 0 for the y right here and solved for x. And if you did it that way, when you solved for x, you would have got 2. So in short, there's more than one way to approach this problem. Question 5. A fence encloses a rectangular field measuring 300 feet by 100 feet. A cow is tied to the fence post at one corner of the field. If the rope is 50 feet long, which of these following represents the grazing area of the cow inside the fence in square feet? So I drew a picture ahead of time. Now in my diagram here, the rectangular field right here has the dimensions of 300 feet by 100 feet, and I got that from right here. So in short, this rectangle in green represents the field right here. And the sides of the rectangle represent the fence, and the corner of the rectangle represents the fence post. So I attached a rope here to the fence post, and the rope's in black. So here's the rope. It's 50 feet long from right here. And the cow is this brown dot, and the cow is attached to the rope right here. So this is my diagram. Now, let's see what we are trying to figure out. We want to know the grazing area of the cow. Watch this little demonstration here, and it might help you understand how to figure this out. Here's the cow. He's attached to the rope, so he can graze in this area from here to here. Hopefully you can see that the grazing area, based on that demonstration, is part of a circle. In other words, it's this piece right here is the grazing area. So the goal here, let me try to draw that a little bit better. The goal here is to find this area right here. This is his grazing area. Right here. Well, let's just continue to draw this circle out as follows. Pretend this is a circle. I can't draw at all. I've been called the Bob Ross of math because of my voice, but I can't draw. So, if I look at this circle, forget the rectangle for a second. here's what I need to do to find this grazing area. Let me extend this piece out here and extend this piece out here. Hopefully you can see now, looking at this circle, that the grazing area is 1/4 of the circle. So basically what I'm going to do is find the area of this whole circle and divide it by 4. And that will give me this piece right here. Now before I even jump into the math, do you think you can pick the correct answer now? I'm telling you, if I were taking the HiSET test, I would guess C. Because C is the only expression that is divided by 4 right here. Let's go ahead and see if our guess is correct. So again, this is what we need to do. We need to find the area of this circle and divide it by 4 to figure out this grazing area right here, because this grazing area represents 1/4 of the whole circle. So we're going to just need this formula here. We don't even need this one. They threw this in here to throw you off. So this formula represents the area of a full circle. So I'll write that down. I'll put A here for area of circle. Equals pi times the radius squared. Well, this represents the area of the whole circle, but I just need to find the area of 1/4 of the circle right here. So I need to take this and divide it by 4. Now let's just go ahead and plug in the appropriate numbers into this formula. And the A here now stands for the grazing area. So I'll bring down my A. I'll bring down my pi. And I need to replace this radius with what number? Well, remember the radius is the distance from the center of the circle to the edge of the circle right here. From center to edge. So basically the radius is the length of the rope. So I'll replace the radius with 50. Bring down my squared divided by 4. Well, hopefully you can see this has to match up with C now, but let's just get it in the exact same form as C. So the area equals pi. Actually, let me write it up here. I'm running out of room. Write it up here. So the area equals pi. Well, remember 50 squared just means 50 times 50. So instead of writing 50 squared, I'll just put times 50 times 50. Right? There's really a times sign here. It's just not showing. And then all of that is divided by 4. And now this exactly matches up with this. Well, I hope you found this video helpful. Have a great day.